Alright everyone, today we're going to cover notes 11.5, surface area of prisms and cylinders. Alright, what we're going to do is we're going to find the surface area of each rectangular prism for numbers 1 through 3. And when we're finding the surface area, we're actually finding the total surface area. There's two. There's the total, which is everything including the bases, and then there's lateral area. So the lateral area is all the lateral faces. So remember, it's the area of everything but your two bases. Now, if you notice, we have two different formulas. We have this one and this one. So the bottom one is what you can actually use for everything. Okay? The top one here, when we're dealing with rectangular prisms or cubes, so it's only specifically for that, so you can't use it with everything else. But this bottom one, you can use it always. So if you wanted to use the bottom one and just skip the top one, you can. I'm going to go ahead and use the first two, the formula for the first two, and then for that third one, I'm going to use that bottom formula to show you how both of them still work. So depending how your eyes are seeing this image, your length, width, and height could be different, but remember, it doesn't really matter. You'll get the same answer at the end. So I'm looking at this larger rectangle, and I see 13 and 9. I'm going to use that as my length and my width. So when I plug that into my formula, I have 2 times 9 times 13. So then I'm going to add that with 2 times my length times my height. And I went ahead and labeled this so it doesn't get all confusing. So my h is 7 and my length is 13. And I'm going to add that with 2 times my width times my height. So my width is 9 and my height is 7. So for that last one, I'm going to use 9 and 7. So remember, guys, we're dealing with total surface area. So what this formula is showing us is we're taking the areas of each rectangle that you see, and then you're just doubling it because you know the one on the opposite side is exactly the same. And so we're taking all the areas of these rectangles, and we're adding them all together. Alright, so I have 208 plus 182 plus 126, and all I'm using is my cell phone calculator. You don't need anything fancy. So you should have gotten 516 square feet. Alright, let's try number 2. So remember, again, your length and width and height don't matter. It just depends on which rectangle you're looking at for your base. So I'll show you what I mean by that. Alright, so as you can see, I shaded one of the rectangles. So if assuming that that's my base, then I have my length and my width. Therefore, my height, your height is always what separates the two bases. So my height would be 5. So I went ahead and plugged everything in. Remember that you can pause this video at any time. And we get 580 squared centimeters. Guys, I apologize. I went back and double checked and I realized one of my answers was wrong. This is not 208. You get 234. And therefore your final answer is 542. There you go. Alright, so I told you for number 3 I was going to show you this second formula. And so I really want to talk about what all these letters mean. H represents the height between the bases, just like I showed you on number 2, how 5 centimeters was the height, right? So that's what separated your two bases. The perimeter is the perimeter of the base. Because we're dealing with rectangular prisms here from numbers 1 through 3, remember, just like I chose what the base was, you can do the same thing. You can choose which rectangle you want your base to be. Okay? And then the big B, the capital B, represents the area of the base. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pick which one of these I want my base to be. So I'm choosing this rectangle here that I shaded to be my base. So remember, the perimeter is the perimeter of the base. So the perimeter of that rectangle, well, I need to go ahead and add all those sides. And so I get 15 for my P. So remember that my height is what separates my two bases, therefore it's going to be 11. So if that's kind of hard to see, I'll show you. I'm going to go ahead and shade the other base, or at least attempt to anyway. So notice how 11 is that length that's splitting up your two bases. So that's the height of the prism. And remember, so again, it's the height based on the base that I chose. So if I would have chosen a different rectangle as my base, my height would obviously be a different number. Alright, so all I need to find now is my big B, right? So I need to find the area of the base. So I have 6 times 1.5. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a 9 here. And all I have to do now is solve. So I get 183 squared inches. Alright, now we are dealing with all the other prisms like triangular prism, hexagonal prism, pentagonal prism, whatever the base may be. So what I want to do is, before I get started and start solving, I'm going to take a second to go ahead and shade my bases. That way I have a clear picture. Alright, so for number 4, the first thing I'm going to find is the lateral area. The lateral area is just the perimeter of the base times the height of the prism. As you can see, my base is my right triangle. So I need to go ahead and add up all the sides. I know that one of the sides is 9, then I have a 12, and I know that this one's 15. So I'm going to add those 3 together. Alright, so I get a 36. And remember, the height of the prism is what separates your two bases. So I have a height of 16. So when I multiply those two together, I get 576 squared meters. Okay, so remember that this is my lateral area. Lateral area is everything but the bases. So a good question might be, well, can't you just get the area of the 3 rectangles and add those 3 together? Yes, you can, and you still get 576. Alright, so I went ahead and Googled a net for a right triangular prism so that you can see. So this is number 4. What I'm trying to say is, remember that lateral area is the area of just the lateral faces, so you're not including the triangles. So if you wanted to, you could have easily just found each of these areas and just added them together. So for this first triangle, we have 9 times 16 to get the area. Alright, for this next one, we have 12 times 16. Remember, it's just length times width, right? That's what we're doing for all of these. And for this last one, we have 15 times 16. And when you add those 3 together, you should get 576, which gives us the same thing as this formula. It's kind of like a shortcut that we use to find the lateral area. But essentially, guys, this is what you're finding. You're finding the area of all the lateral faces, so your 3 rectangles. I hope that made more sense as to understanding what lateral area is. Alright, so to find the total surface area, all we're going to do is we're going to add to the formula that we already have 2 times the area of the base. We double it because there's 2 bases. Now, I already know that the first part is 576, so I'm just going to leave that alone. And then I'm going to put my 2 times my, the capital B represents, again, base area. So the base is the triangle. Therefore, I need to find the area of the triangle. I have base times height divided by 2. That's area for a triangle. So if you look, remember that when it's a right triangle, your base and your height are the legs. So I have 9 and 12. So I get 54 as my B. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. And so at this point, you can just plug that all in the calculator. And you should get 684. So now I'm going to use that same example that I was working with earlier, right here. So all I did, the total includes the 2 bases, right? So that includes my 2 triangles. And I found that the area of my triangles was 54. Because I took the 9 times the 12 and divided it by 2. So I added those 2 to the 576. So I already had 576. And 54 and 54 makes 108. So when I add those together, that's how I get the 684. So this is pretty much the picture laid out. We're using this net to kind of really understand, well, what's total surface area? Well, it's everything included. What's lateral area? Okay, well, that's just everything but the bases. And so remember what these formulas mean. Okay, hopefully that helped, guys. All right, so for number 5, I need to find two things for my lateral area, my perimeter and my height. Right, so my perimeter, it's going to be the perimeter of the triangle because that's my base. So I'm going to take my 5 and I'm going to add that with my 12 and 10. So you get 27. So my P is 27. And remember that the height is the height of the prism. So that's what's separating my two bases, which is 3. And so for our lateral area, we get 81. And I'm sorry, I should have used my units, squared kilometers. And I know I'm constantly rewriting all these formulas, and I will continue to do that until we get kind of like a better understanding of what everything means. So surface area, it's all the lateral area pretty much plus 2 times the base area. And we already have pH. We already found the lateral area. So I'm just going to put an 81 right there. All I need to do now is find the base area. My base, again, here is a triangle as well. So I need to find the area of this triangle. Well, I already have my height. It's 4.1. That was a given. So it's base, which is 12, times your height, 4.1. Remember that you know that your base is 12 because your base and your height always make a right angle. So we have 12 times 4.1, and then we divide it by 2. That's area for triangle. And so we get 24.6 for our B. So for the surface area, the total surface area, we're just going to calculate all of this. You should get 130.2. All right, for number 6, we have a trapezoid as our base. So I need to go ahead and find the perimeter of that trapezoid. When you add up all your sides, you should get 73 for your perimeter. And hopefully by now you figured out that 15 is the height of the prism. That's the length that's separating your two bases. All right, so for your lateral area, you should get 1095 squared feet. Now for our total surface area, we're just going to add 2 times the base area. So again, we already have this first part, that's 1095. So I need to find the B. Once again, the B represents the area of the base. So I need to find the area of the trapezoid. Here is the formula in case you forgot. You add your bases together, multiply in parentheses, right? Multiply that with your height and then divide the whole thing by 2. All right, guys, this is where it starts to get a little messy, and I should have explained this earlier. So the B represents the area of the base. So we're just focused on the trapezoid. So when we talk about height, this H is different from the H in the formula, okay? The H in the formula represents the height of the prism. But the H here in this bottom formula represents just the height of the trapezoid. So we're focused on the trapezoid only. So we have our two bases are 23 and 18. So our height of the trapezoid is 12. So that's a different height. The height of the prism itself is 15. So I hope I was able to clear that up if anybody possibly had a question over that. And you should have gotten 246 for your B. So now I'm going to plug that in and calculate all that, and you should get 1587 squared feet.